Today's presentation is literally taking you through either reviewing your vivid vision if you already have one, if you haven't got one, starting that process. We do this before every planning day and it's very deliberate. If a couple of reference books for you, probably the most important one relating to this is called Your Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. And he literally resonated with me because we used to do this anyway. We used to talk about the 5-year vision. He talks about 3 years. And the whole idea behind this is to be very clear on what you're building. We often talk about people in business, and one of the planning sort of aspects is knowing what your business will look like when it's finished. Very few people are clear on that picture. So we go forward 5 years and we say, if we were there in 5 years' time, what would it look like? Now, the problem, one of the biggest problems that a business owner has is focus and clarity. And I know we all suffer from this because what happens is we go into overwhelm. There's too much email, telephone calls, there's too much media that's distracting us. And sometimes we forget what our purpose is in business. Now, if you're typical of a business owner, you give up on purpose and you become very reactive. Who's guilty of being very reactive in their business? Can I guess? Yeah, okay, at least almost everybody. Now, the reason that happens is because emails keep coming in, phone calls keep coming in, people want their bills paid, and we just chase our tail. Now, I get it, right? If you're a business owner, yes, you have to serve your customer. If you're a business owner, yes, you have to make sure things are done. But if you don't have a bigger pick that you're using for focus, what ends up happening is overwhelm. And people who've been in business over 5 years know exactly what happens. The years get shorter and the movement forward becomes less noticeable. So we end up in this whirlwind we call business. So the problem we're trying to solve here is making sure that you know exactly what the best use of your time is every day. The opportunity. So there's an old saying, clarity leads to power. And I think often people lose sight of the big picture. And they tell me I'm busy and they're in busyness. And the impact of being busy is undetermined because busy is not really telling me what's going on. So the opportunity is to make sure that every 8 weeks, we do this as a cycle, you have a clear picture of what you're building, where you'll be in 5 years' time, and you can articulate it clearly to your team, to your client base, and to the whole market. Now, if you do this effectively, it helps you become very clear on what your priorities are. So we're going to talk about 5 key principles, and then we're going to get into the actual roll your sleeves up and get this done. The first principle is this law of attraction. Now, we all like to be attractive, right? And in some way, shape or form. And this principle of attraction in business is really about finding the right clients, but it's also about finding the right employees. It's about finding the right suppliers. And it's about making sure that people see the value in what you. So the principle of attraction is simple. You need to define what you stand for in your business. You need to define who you are, and you need to make sure it's on public record. And this then in turn helps attract better caliber team members, and it helps attract better caliber clients. So anyone, a good mentor of mine once said to me many years ago, he said, David, in business, you get the people you deserve. And it was a very blunt instrument that he used to whack me over the head, because looking at my team members and looking at my clients, if I wasn't happy with the caliber of my team members or my clients, I had nowhere to go except for the mirror. And so that led me on this thought process of who am I attracting into my business? So if any of you are having difficulties with saying I'm getting clients that are too small or not the right kind of client, or the employees that I'm attracting, or I can't find good people are not the right people, it's not about looking in different places. It's about really looking in the mirror and saying, what am I attracting based on my current business identity? Is everyone following me on this? Thumbs up if you're with me. Awesome. So the second principle I want to touch on is something that most of you may have heard of, is this little fellow in the corner. That his name's Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. And he wrote a book called Starting With Why. And in his book, he had a very simple principle, which is very key to what we're talking about today. And his principle was simply, he called it the golden circle. And it runs in this sort of process. Basically, there's 3 levels. And he said, see, most people, when you talk about your business and you're in discussion with people, what's the most common thing people talk about? They talk about what they do, right? So he calls that the what, right? So if we talk to Michael and Miriam, they'll say that they're in the security business. And if anyone does B&I, the first thing we do, we stand up and say, hi, my name's David Guest and I'm a business coach. So this is what we do. Now, his principle is simply, he goes, the what of your business is not that inspiring or exciting. The next thing in the circle he talks about is the how. And this is the point of difference, right? So I might be a business coach, but how I deliver my service might be different to my competitors. So now we talk about the how. But right in this middle circle is what he calls the why. Okay. Now he calls it the golden circle because typically when most people talk about their business, they start with the what they do, how they do it, and they may touch on the why they do it. But if you look at the most inspiring companies in the world, and he references companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google, they always talk about their vision first, right? And if we think about what Apple's vision is to make a difference, or as Steve Jobs used to put a ding in the universe, or to think differently. And so that was his why. And then he went into his how and his what. So if you want to be attractive in your business, right? If you want to create a vision statement, a 5-year vision that is going to attract high caliber team members, the first thing you need to consider is, why does your business exist, right? Then the how, and then the what you deliver. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2 I want to touch on is a thing called perspective. Now, when we put our 5-year vision together, there's a couple of elements to it. And I just want to give you a sense of how that all fits together. And so just imagine this is you, and you're running this business, and we say, look, being in chaos is symptomatic of not being clear on where you're going. So what we need to do is we need to start off with vision, okay? Now, when we talk about vision, we normally talk about this idea of this, basically this guiding star, right? So this is what we call vision. It's this big picture of where you see yourself when you finish, or it might be your why. So there's a whole lot of different terminologies that people use here. Some people call it the why, some people call it the purpose, and other people in Japan call it the 100-year goal, right? Now, it all alludes to the same thing. It's a big picture. Now, the reason we pick a big picture is that the minute we pick a big picture, little obstacles. So let's have a look at an obstacle down here, right? Now, I'll give you an obstacle that's happened right now is we've moved into lockdown 6.2, or whatever you want to call it, right? But the government comes along and changes the rules on everybody. Now, for some people in business, that is diabolically bad. For other people in business, it's a speed hump. Now, the way we make problems smaller is by focusing on this bigger picture, okay? So the idea here is that when we're focused on this bigger picture up here, what happens is the obstacles in front of us become less significant, okay? So we've got this thing called the vision, okay? Now, there's 2 other components that I'm going to talk about here. Because if we think about vision, it's the top of the mountain. And when we keep our focus on the top of the mountain, it doesn't tell us what to do next. We need a bit of a roadmap. So this roadmap literally has to guide us down this road. Now, if we think about vision as the why, okay, vision as the why, then what happens is there's a thing called mission. And mission, generally speaking, is the how, okay? Going back to the golden circle, we have our why and we have our how. This roadmap that we have, it has these little signposts on it. And these signposts basically tell us whether we're on track, okay? Now, these little signposts here, generally speaking, are going to be goals, or sometimes we call it the what, okay? And so when we do our planning, there's 3 perspectives here, okay? The first perspective is that we have this thing called vision, which is our big picture, the why. The second perspective is the how, which is our point of difference or the roadmap. And the third perspective is our what. How do we know that we're on track? And it could be like we have 12-month goals. We might have a 5-year goal here, 12-month goal here. We might have a 90-day goal. Okay, so we have these milestones on the way. Now, there's one more piece to this puzzle. Doesn't fit in anywhere here other than being a set of bearings. And this is known as our compass. And so vision, mission, goals, and this one here is our values. Now, we've got our why, our how, and our what. And if we look at what values represent, it's our, okay, so we've got our why, we've got our how, we've got our what, and we've got our who. Now, as we build our vivid vision, all of these areas need to be taken into account, okay? And the reason we want to incorporate all of these is because our vivid vision then becomes a robust picture of what we're trying to build and how we deliver our service, how do we know if we're on track, and what are the kind of people that we want to attract in our business. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is the time machine. Now, anyone who's a historian will know which time machine that is. It's very original and very easy to distinguish. But the reason I want to talk about the time machine is simple. One of our biggest challenges as human beings is our association with current status quo and history. And we hear it in all of our languaging, things like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is the way we've always done it. It's never been done before. And as you use these statements, what you're doing is you're cementing your link to the past, okay? Now, part of being entrepreneurial and creative is literally taking all of your past information and using it to paint a picture of the future without the constraints that you're bringing forward from the past. So the philosophy of the time machine is simple. When we do our vivid vision, what we need to be thinking about is physically jumping into a time machine, going forward 5 years. Now, one of the underlying assumptions of moving forward with the time machine is that everything that you now see in your future business has worked out. So I don't want dependencies like it depends on when we come out of lockdown, it depends on who I can employ, it depends on whether my customers are still around, because all of those are constraints from the past, okay? So when we do the time machine component of our vivid vision, we're assuming that everything that you said you wanted to do was successful, okay? Now, this is really quite difficult for a lot of people because inevitably they say, it depends on how many clients we get, depends if I find the right person. And these dependencies don't aid with vision, okay? Because the idea of having this vivid vision is to actually picture the perfect world for your business in the future. Is everyone with me so far? Thumbs up if you're with me. Cool. So the perspective is a really important of this vision, part of this vision document. And the last but not least thing is that we do need to think about the future. Now, what I mean by this is for a lot of us, when we start painting this picture of the vision of our organization, our current identity is going to struggle, okay? And what I mean by that is when you say to me, as an example, in 5 years' time, I really don't know what's going to happen. And I say, I have a magic wand here, right? And with my magic wand, I can give you whatever business you wish. Now, most people look at me like you're on another planet, but then after they get over that component, they go, if I could have the business I wanted, then in that case, and then they start creating in their mind. And the creation in your mind has to be around typically how much money do you want to be making and how hard do you want to be working? Or how many people do you want to help with your product or service, okay? So this whole idea of future you is we're painting a picture of a business that's quite large. Now, almost guaranteed that if your vision is big enough, your current you will freak out and say, I don't know how to run this. And I hear stories like this. I don't want to have such a big team because it's a headache. I just want to stay small. Now, when you use statements like, I just want to stay small, that's usually fear of the unknown, yeah? Because those people who stay small because they think it's less stressful than having a big team have either had a bad experience in the past or are scared to death of who might show up and ruin their good work, right? So let's assume that team that you employ is an awesome team of people that are better than you, because the law of attraction states that I can't attract those high caliber people until I have a vision of what the environment that they need to work in looks like. And I build that environment. Is everyone with me on this? So this whole idea of future vision is quite difficult. And I guarantee you that if you're not struggling with your future vision, chances are you're thinking too small. You're thinking too small, because if it's comfortable for you, your 5-year vision, generally speaking, what you've done is use, well, based on my current trajectory, if I multiply that by 5 years with compounding interest, this is where I'll be. Now, you could be right, but the old saying is if you set your goals too low and you succeed, it might be worse than setting your goals too high and failing. So the whole idea of future vision is to actually take the constraints away, paint the picture of what the ideal business would look like for you. Normally, when I look at the future vision of a business, my anticipation is that it provides you the lifestyle choices that you want. All right. Now, 5 years is a distance that we pick because it's far enough away that things can change quite dramatically, but it's not so far away that it's in the never, never. All right. And that's one of the reasons we do that. Cool. I am assuming that some of you have started the work on this. Who's already started? Actually, let me ask you a different question. Who hasn't started work on their 5-year vision yet? Who hasn't done this? Okay, just Narelle. Okay. So, Joe, what we're going to do is in a moment, we're going to put people in the breakout rooms in groups of 3. You just make sure that Narelle and I think it was Frank, who hasn't got their vision, aren't in the same room together. Okay. But other than that, you can put a random group together. Now, when we go into these breakout rooms, I don't expect you to have a perfect 5-year vision. What I do expect you to do is be able to articulate what you believe the business will look like in 5 years' time in broad terms. Now, I don't need a blow-by-blow description. What I need you to do is give me the essence of that. So when we go into the breakout rooms, we're literally going to give you 3 minutes per person, okay, 3 minutes per person. So we're going to have 9 minutes in the breakout rooms in groups of 3, where each person is going to have a go at explaining where they see their business in 5 years' time. Now, you can ask questions of that person for clarification, okay? But I don't want you judging their 5-year vision. I just want you to help them come to terms with what this picture will look like. Is everyone with me on this? Does this make sense? Okay. Now, it's going to be a rough and ready exercise. I just want you to go in these rooms for 9 minutes and have this conversation. And then we're going to come back and we're going to debrief a little bit on what's happened out of that. Now, for those who haven't got the document, well, you should have it. If you've registered for the GPS workshop at least once in your lifetime in the past year, you've had that document sent to you. Has anyone not got a copy of the 5-year vision document? Has anyone not? Okay. Only Narelle. Neville has. Come on, you guys have got it. Don doesn't. It's sometimes called your 5-year vivid vision. Or if you registered for the GPS, which is on Thursday, you would have got an email that says, here is the preparation document for GPS prep, okay? So if you don't have that document, don't worry about it for this breakout. I still want you to go into these rooms and I want you to describe your business. Now, remember, we're using the time machine philosophy. It's 2026. We open the door and we're standing in front of your business and everything has worked exactly as planned. What does it look like? All right. Any questions before we go into the breakouts? No? Okay. Joe, are you right to do this? All right. On the count of three, we're going to shift into the breakouts and we'll see you back here in 9 minutes. 1, 2, 3, and you have to join the breakout. I'm curious, into the chat box, what did you take out of that breakout? So what did you learn about other people? What did you observe and what did you learn about yourself? Into the chat box. What did you get out of having that interaction? We're all struggling on the creative side, absolutely. Alfred, Frank has an awesome vivid vision about our business. That's from Adrian, his partner. That's funny. Very detailed goals behind the vision. When they have vision, it's more compelling and you want to do business with them 100%. The focus is less on the how and more on the why. Yeah, absolutely. Need to focus on the vision, not the path. Yep, great. The vision develops more distinctly over time. Yeah, similar scaling. My vision is broad and I need to refine the details. Having all 4 components is a must. Why, how, what, and who. Yeah, need to think bigger. Isn't that funny? Adrian thinks it's awesome and Frank thinks need to think bigger. It's fascinating to hear about our visions. Would anyone like to share what they got out of that breakout or what they've gotten out of so far? If you want to share, just into the chat box, just type in share. If you do, I don't think anyone does. Interesting. We've got a few. Don, let's get you up.
David, I think there seems to be a natural tendency to relapse to talking about or focusing about the path or how we're going to get there or what our plans are versus, the vision itself. So it's a little bit of a struggle for some of us to focus on the vision and keep that in mind distracted by the things that are on the path or the plans that are going to get us there.
Yeah, this ain't easy, by the way. Being a visionary in a business requires stretching a muscle that we probably don't use. And for most of us, it's one we haven't used for a long time, so it's atrophied. And so people in startup are much more relaxed and comfortable with doing this. People have been established for a while. The constraints have started to creep in. And so this activity of reviewing your vision is really quite critical and it's painful for some, right? Because when you share your vision with someone and then you read it and you hear yourself speaking, and all of a sudden you say, that doesn't sound that exciting. This is self-correction kicking in. So I think being vulnerable and being willing to share and being willing to take some constructive criticism from other people is a definite requirement in growing your vision. It's a bit like a seedling, right? If I share my vision and I get knocked down in flames, it's like destroying the seedling. It won't grow into a tree. So a safe environment like this, sharing your vision, because where it gets more difficult is sharing this with your team members, okay, and sharing it with your community, with your clients. Because sometimes when you share your big vision with people, they think that you're mad, you're thinking too big, and they think that you're going to discard them. When you've got a vision, you go, hang on a second, I'm used to you being small. One of the issues we have with identity, and this is where I talked about your future self, is the person who's going to run this business in 5 years' time is not your current self, it's your future self. And your future self has to develop the skills and the knowledge and the understanding to be able to run that bigger business. So this part of creation that we're doing today is literally just roughly sketching out what this thing might look like. So then the next question is, who do I have to become to drive this business? Okay. And that's the personal development side. Thanks for sharing.
People seem a bit constrained by reality too, a bit reticent to create that VHAG kind of thing.
Yes.
That is not necessarily particularly rooted in rationale, but audacious.
Yeah, it is difficult because we are rooted in rationale and get real. And our whole lives is all about getting real and being a realist. Right? But here's what happens is if you look at the big visionaries in our society, they could have been put into a mental institution as well, okay? Because their ideas were radical and so radical that people said, you're insane. I don't even believe you're thinking that way. Now, I don't know how big your thinking is, but I can usually tell from the vision documents that we see. And part of this exercise is to actually, rather than, I have vision for my company and then it's weak, we share it. And that gives us the feedback mechanism. So this is a bit of tough love that's occurring right now with this. So that's the whole idea of this. Kevin, you wanted to share?
Just two things happened. I realized that I didn't have a 3-sentence elevator pitch. And as I started to formulate some thoughts, they're all about what I wanted to achieve as a business owner, not looking at the why or from a customer perspective. And it's the same trap I fall into in every presentation when we engage with customers. We talk about the bells and the whistles and not about what we're solving as their problems.
Yeah. And I think until you share your vision, none of this becomes real, right? None of this becomes apparent. And so often I hear people's vision and it's all about themselves. My vision is to retire when I'm this age, or to make X amount of dollars so I don't have to work so hard, or to work X amount of hours. But then if you share that with your team members and they look at it and they go, how does that help us? You start to realize it's not encompassing. Now, for a vision to be all encompassing, it needs to be big enough that it encompasses the vision that your team members have and the vision that your clients have as well. So it's challenging how big your thinking is. Many years ago, one of my favorite books, and I've read it at least a dozen times, is The Magic of Thinking Big. It's an old one. It's a goodie. David Schwartz wrote it. It's one of those classic, and it's a bit like Think and Grow Rich in its principles, but it talks about this whole idea of creation. And he suggests straight up, and this book was written in the 50s, he says, most people don't think big enough. And people don't like to think big, because if I think big and I fail, then I'm a failure. And for me, it's the other way around. If you don't think big enough and you succeed, then you're not going to be happy with the results. So this whole idea of thinking big and detaching ourselves from our current constraints is super hard. And there's a vulnerability in there that most of us don't like. Yeah, awesome. Alex, can I just get you to...
I am unmuted.
Awesome. Tell us about how come it's getting easier each time.
Well, I started to think differently.
Yeah.
Each time the penny drops, and
Yeah.
suddenly this small moment that I understand a little bit more, and each time I'm thinking that now I understand everything.
Yeah.
And then next time I think, oh yeah, okay, now I understand everything. And so it's sort of incremental understanding and better understanding, and it gets easier.
Yes.
Easier to dream, easier to see the point,
Yeah.
easier to the statement, etc., etc.
Thank you. So I think one of the critical elements here, and this is where I disagree a bit with what Cameron Herold suggests. He says pick a date 3 years into the future and design that business and then work towards it. But for me, it's a sliding scale, because if I look at Alex today versus Alex 6 months ago, two different people, right? Because Alex today has probably read a couple of books, been to a couple of seminars and had a few life experiences. So when she writes her 5-year vision today, it'll be different to the one she wrote 6 months ago. Now, to me, it's an evolution. You must review your 5-year vision on a regular basis. At a minimum, we do it every 8 weeks. We force it through this process. But for me, it's every month, right? I'm looking at my 5-year vision. I'm rereading it. And I'm saying, is it still valid? Is there things that need to change? Have I learned some new things that I should add to this? Is it attracting the right people? Are they getting excited by reading this, or are they getting put off by reading this? So the feedback comes in and I redesign it, because my job as the leader of my business is simple. I carry the light, I carry the vision of the company, and I communicate that vision to everyone I come in contact with. And if I'm doing that effectively, I'll have the right people knocking on my door to work for me. I have the right clients wanting to engage our services, and I'll have the right partners knocking on our door. So everything will start to fall into place when you get this clear. Awesome. Like, I was going to go through the document, but I don't know if I have to, because everyone's had to go at this. There's a couple of people that haven't. Joe's going to put it into the chat box for those who haven't got the Creating Your 5-Year Vision document. Did you want me to quickly just run through some of those questions, if anyone's struggling with any of those? Rel.
Yeah, I just have a question, and I think the answer is something like Apple. So it's audacious, but I think my vision is around, and I had one and I looked back on it and I was like, no, I don't like that anymore, to Alex's point. But I think my vision is more about exploding my industry, because it's not nearly as big as it could or should be. And
Yeah.
so maybe it's playing a instrumental role in that change.
Yes. So what's happening is you're looking at it saying, it's not about me. It's not even about my customers, it's about my industry. And here's the funny part. The bigger the vision, the more people you will enroll into your vision. Right. And this is why I'm saying we need to stretch this rubber band out, right? Because the more profound your shift to an industry, like for Steve Jobs, changing the status quo or challenging the status quo meant that it doesn't matter whether it's an iPod, an iPad, a MacBook, all of these things are products that they can bring under that umbrella, where when someone like Microsoft says, hey, we're creating an MP3 player, they go, but you're a computer company. Jim's Mowing says, we're going into Jim's bookkeeping services. And they go, why do I want a lawnmowing guy doing my books? Right? Because the vision was to be Jim's Mowing. And it's quite difficult now for him to change that image in the marketplace. So yeah, the bigger the vision is, the bigger impact you can make with your vision. And this is why I say you need to take constraints out. If you believe you can make a difference in an industry, if you believe that your voice needs to be heard in the industry, that's part of the vision. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I will quickly run through these questions just to make sure everyone's got clarity, because between now and Thursday, You just need to do the fine tuning for this, because having the vision clear in your mind when you come to the planning day is one of the secret sources to making sure you find the things you need. So let's have a quick look at the document. It looks something like this: creating a vivid vision. The first questions are very much size oriented. Now, Cameron Herold in his book suggests you don't need to have the numbers. You just need to have what the company is going to be like. But I think that that's up to you. Right? This is how big is your business, number of clients, revenue, income, profit, what's the value of your business at this point in time. If you don't understand what your business valuation is based on, you need to learn about that. Because one of the things we don't realize as a business owner is our business has a value. And by the way, every business is always for sale. It's just a question of how much, okay? Just a question of how much. So if you don't know how much your business is worth right now, you need to start thinking about how's businesses in my industry valued? Because the other thing that happens is if you focus just on cash flow and revenue and not creating the asset value of your business, then what's happening is it's like living in a house that you haven't finished a renovation on. And then when you go to sell it, you go, oh, let's fix the garden and let's do that final coat of paint. But for most people that do that, they fall back in love with the house because now it's what they envisioned it to be. Okay. So then on a physical level, we talk about where's the business at. My suggestion is get some photos of some office spaces if that's what you have. If it's warehouses, photos of warehouses. So visualize as much as possible. What's the organization in your business look like? How many employees? Guess, right? Bigger is better than smaller in your vision. Okay, bigger is better than smaller. Do you have partners? What role do you play in the business? For a lot of us, we don't want to stop work. Very few of us want to actually retire and sit on the beach. Most of us want to be one day a month or one day a week or whatever it might be. Who's your target market? Okay. And this should be part of any business plan, any marketing plan, is being really clear on who your target market is. But more importantly, why do they rave about your business? What is it about the service that makes them raving fans? These questions are all here in the document. How do you differ to your competitors? Your unique selling proposition. Now, I'm reading an interesting book right now, which talks about this whole idea it's called the $100 million offer. And a very fascinating book, because the distinction is that if you do not have clarity on why you're better than your competitor, you're destined to be quoting on price. And quoting on price commoditizes your service and reduces the value, not increases the value. So you need to be 100% clear as to what you're offering and why your competitors don't offer anything like it. Because as soon as your product is comparable, if people are getting two quotes and it looks the same, they're going to go with the cheaper quote. Your product has to be distinctly different. And this comes down to how much time you spend on your unique selling proposition. So what makes you the best of what you do? What products or services do you offer and why? What type of customers do you offer? What are the functional areas of the business? I won't go into the detail of that one. That's pretty self-explanatory. How do you market your business, right? What's your primary method, right? Including all these questions. What areas are outsourced, insourced? What are the clients saying? Now, this is important because what the clients are saying is something that you don't know unless you ask them. But remember, 5-year vision is what do I want my clients to be saying? Not what my clients are saying, but what I want them to be saying in 5 years' time. What does the media write about you? Now, people often put a question mark in there. But if the media is writing about you, what are they saying? And I want you to think 5 years into the future. And I want you to think no constraint. So what the media should be saying about you is you are the best in your industry. You have revolutionized the industry. You have created a unique product that no one else can offer. And people are grateful, et cetera, et cetera. Now, sometimes our ego gets in the way and we say, oh, I don't know. I don't really want to be too out there. But remember, this is 5-year vision. This is you stretching the rubber band. What kind of comments are the employees making, right, when they're sitting around? This is important as well. What do you want them to be saying about the business? I'd never leave this place. They have the best conditions for employees of all time. If I could get all my friends to work here, I would. What is that for you? What's the buzz around you, about you in your community? Same question. So don't sort of shortchange yourself on the answers to these questions. Just go in with as if everything goes perfectly. How's the company running day to day? What kind of stuff do you do every day? What's your company's financials reveal? Okay. And don't be shy of profit. A profitable business is a good business. Sometimes people are a bit ashamed about how much money they make, right? If you ever decide you're going to go public in the future, everyone knows how profitable you are because that's part of the requirement of going public. So don't be shy about being profitable as an organization. How are you funded now? What are your core values? So we talked about the values before. That's a whole separate exercise, right? But the questions there is, what is important to you about the business that you're invested in? What is your exit strategy? Think about how do you get out? Now, I don't mean retirement, the choice of having to go to work and not go to work. Okay. Because the reality for some of us, we're self-employed, we're stuck. And sometimes big organizations rely on us. What is your exit? How are you going to get out of that situation? If you love what you do and you go to work every day because you love it, fine. But one day you may not be able to. Okay. Or you may have other things that are priorities. How do you switch out of that? Okay. So what, and then it asks for the summary. What sort of is the vision in a short statement? Now, has anyone got any questions around that? Okay. So what I'd love to see from you guys is that you actually go back to this document if you've done it before and just keep filling it in. It should grow and it should evolve over time. And the reason we want you to do it now is that when we come to planning day, if you've been working on this for the past few days, when you come into planning day, this is top of mind, right? And the purpose of vision is to be top of mind when you're selecting, what am I working on next? Okay. Because the idea here is that you come out of the planning day with a list of important but not urgent activities. Right, things that you know will move the needle in the mid to long term, not just I need to get more quotes out the door or I need to reach my sales target. But what am I building here? What is the 5-year vision? What are the elements that I need to put in place now so I can attract the right people into my business? So making sense for everyone? Cool. Let's wrap up with some takeaways. And so what's been really useful for you out of this morning? Maybe into the chat box. Oh, actually, Joe has done a marvelous job. There's a link in the chat box that's going to take you over to our Facebook group. This is our internal community, and we've been getting some great traction. And what it does, it also means the comments you make, not only can other people read them, they can comment on those as well. So if you click on that link, yes, she is a legend. Absolutely. If you click on that link, that'll take you straight to the inner circle. I would like you to just, what's resonated with you most today? What's been most useful for you into the Facebook group, if you can bring those in as we wrap up today. And let's just see what people come up with. What's been most useful? What's resonated with you? What do you need to work on between now? What's been most useful for you? What has resonated with you? How to formulate the vision content. So what's resonated with you most, Harry, out of today? If you had to pick one thing that sort of stuck with you, what is it?
It's the vision has the 4 criteria of why, how, what, and who. And if you think clearly about those, you can combine those to create an emotional vision statement.
Yeah, it has to be compelling. And the test with a vision statement is it attracting the right kind of people to my business? Because if it isn't, sometimes you need to go back to the drawing board and start adjusting some of those things. Awesome. Narelle, being audacious with the vision. Yeah. Do you want to expand on that one a little bit?
Yeah, interestingly, in our first plan, I had it that we would ultimately go national. And then we pared that back because it was a bit hard and the profit would suffer and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I'm like, I'm putting it back on the table.
Yeah, if you go 5 years forward, remember when I said everything goes according to plan, the 5-year vision can incorporate global. And some people are terrified by that word, global, but I think they forget we're already global. Anyone who's online right now, you're global, right? If you're outsourcing offshore, you're global. If you've got customers that are contacting you from different places around the world, you're global. So it's not out of the ballpark to be global. And I think in 5-year vision, we need to incorporate that as well. I'd also like to share just before we come to an end on this one. Claire, remove your own fears and constraints when describing your future. Let's talk about that one.
Oh, you're laughing. It sounds so silly because it's so simple, but I think it's the first time the penny really dropped. You are going to be a different person in 5 years' time.
Yeah. To
make this happen. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's got to happen to you to be the person that can cope with all of this stuff in 5 years' time, but remove that from the discussion.
Yeah, 100%. This is the biggest fear we have is we don't know whether we can handle teams. Like a lot of people say, I don't want to build a big team because it's stressful. And then when I ask the question, what experience have you had with having a team of 20? They go, none. And then the question is, why do you fear it? Because I don't know. Okay, that's cool. 5 years away, do you reckon you can learn how to run a team within 5 years? Or do you reckon you could even find a manager to run your team? 5 years, I probably could. So the possibility is the starting point. And we need to think about our identity, because I haven't done the iceberg today. For those who have seen it, we paint a picture, our ego paints a picture of who we are. And anything that tries to shift us out of that identity, either negative or positive, our ego fights. And we fight it by going, I don't know how, I'm not sure if that'll work, it's too stressful. And these, you can hear the excuses come out of people. And I'm not suggesting we need to switch today. What I am suggesting is the person who's going to run this 5-year business is probably the future you, not the current you. Because if it was the current you, you'd be running that business right now. I think there's a guy by the name of Buckminster Fuller, if anyone wants to do the research, and he made a comment, and it was something along the lines of, you are exactly where you want to be in life. So wherever you are right now, whatever your bank account reflects, the people around you, it's where you want to be. Because if you didn't want to be there, you'd be moving and you wouldn't settle. So this whole idea that vision is about a future you, that you don't know that person yet, you need to introduce yourself to that person and grow that person. It's quite a different framework. So thanks, Claire, for sharing that one. David Bracker, just want to talk quickly about your one. Resonate today, listening to the vision, it sparked commitment and excitement. So you just want to give us a bit more on that?
Yeah, when you're dealing with somebody, if I was talking to Philip or Norel and they're talking about how they want their business to be, it shows that they're going to be around and they're committed to doing something good in their business and in their industry and for their people. So you feel like, that resonates with me and they're the type of people you want to do business with. So that's what I was trying to express in. They're not just here for a week or a month or just $1. They're here for something bigger than themselves.
Yeah. I often talk about it. In Japan, they have 100-year business plans. And one of the reasons they use 100-year cycles is because they know that the current team will not be there. The business is being built for sustainability for the future generations. And often we don't think about that in our own business. We go, what am I thinking beyond, like, if I sell it, I'm out. You go, yes, but if you build it with this concept of being sustainable, the value of the business goes up. The value of the employees goes up. If all you're thinking about is how much can I sell this for and by when? Sometimes if you're doing if in property, we call it flipping, right? If you're flipping a property, the renovation is very different to the one you're building to live in forever, okay? And so sometimes we've got to think about that context. Are we putting lipstick on this business so we can sell it? Are we building a business that we actually want to be proud of and we want to get the right team members coming into? So this activity is really key. And I love it so much because it really helps people create. And what we're doing today is really getting you to think about, what am I creating here? And who am I attracting into my business, into my life? And what do I need to do to become a better leader? What do I need to do to become a better leader? And it shouldn't be scary. It should be incremental, okay? It should be just about, okay, what's the next thing that I need to implement? Awesome. Has it been a useful session today, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
I really just wanted to make sure that you've got a clear understanding of why we do the 5-year vision and how to adapt it a little bit. I'd like you to spend a little bit of time just reviewing what you currently have, making the adjustments and getting it as close as you can to ready for Thursday. We won't be going through the same exercise of using it on Thursday, but it's just the process of writing it or changing it or adjusting it that will give you the clarity that you need to make sure we get a great planning day. So thanks very much for your time and your attention today, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you Thursday morning at 8.